welcome to another episode of Thrive with Carly. I'm Carly, and today, guys, I have got an episode for you all about the power of a life pivot. It's just me, it's a solo episode today, so settle in. This episode is really going to be good for you if you kind of feel at the moment that you're living life, but you feel like there is something more for you. Maybe you're not quite sure of what that something more is just yet. Maybe you're kind of feeling like, oh, I just can't put my finger on it. But right now, I know that I'm just living and I'm going through the motions and I'm not feeling as fulfilled as what I could be or what I desire to be. Or maybe you do know what it is that you want to do, or maybe you want to, make this major change in your life or even in your business. And you're like, shit, but what if I make that change? Like, I don't know what my life's going to look like on the other side of that. I feel fear around doing that because I can't see how it's going to turn out, right? Maybe you're questioning something in your life or something in your business direction. Okay, this episode is going to be for you. Now, as I said, maybe you kind of know what that thing is that you want to do, but maybe you don't, okay? Maybe you just know that there is something else that you want to explore or something that is really, really not serving you in your life, in your business anymore. And I find it really interesting because there tends to be like these layers of shame that we place on ourselves when we think about moving in a different direction or pivoting or starting things over again, right? There tends to be these feelings of, oh my God, what are people going to think of me if I'm starting my life all over again? And I can tell you, when I was 29, almost 30, and I was leaving a relationship with nothing but my car, 2 bags of clothes, and a whole lot of debt, those thoughts were consuming me, and I felt so much shame. Like, I moved back into my parents' home for a few months, before I moved to Perth. But I can tell you that I was consumed with feeling and worrying about what other people would think of me. And of course, we know that's not true, right? Like, no one really cares. No one's really thinking anything about us. It's all just our own perception of ourselves. But that was one of the big things that held me back for such a long period of time. And I don't know whether you can relate to that, but if you're sort of feeling like at the moment there's this big thing that you want to change, that you want to do, but you might be worrying, like, what are people going to think of me? How am I going to be perceived? Right? Like, I totally get that if that's where you are right now. But let me also tell you that I have started my life over again so many times. Well, my life, I've started over again a few times. But I've also changed directions in my business quite a lot as well. And this is another area that I sort of felt some shame around, because I was like, God, I've got so many passions. Like, I've got so many things that I love to do and I love to help people with, and I, want to bring to life, because I'm this multi-passionate, multi-faceted fucking human. And how can I do them all, right? And how can I actually start one thing and then move on to another and then move on to another, whilst also being taken seriously, whilst honoring, what feels good for me and where I want to go, whilst honoring my heart and following what lights me up. How can I do that and still create a name for myself in the industry that I want to work in, the industry that I want to be in? There's all these kinds of feelings of shame and how will I be perceived, right? But, the first thing I guess I want to highlight is that no one's really perceiving you in any way. It's you perceiving yourself in a particular way, and you're projecting that out. Okay, people are only ever going to see you in the way that you see and believe about and think about yourself. All right, this is like self-concept 101. What you believe about yourself, other people in the world, is just going to be projected out and then mirrored back to you. Okay, so first little, I guess, lesson here before we get too deep into it is like, what are you believing about yourself and what it means to actually pivot and start over again, right? And as I said, this could be any area of your life. This could be a small thing that you're wanting to change in your business. Like, maybe you're wanting to change your offers, or maybe you're wanting to change your niche and who you speak to. Or maybe you're wanting to go from being a coach and you're wanting to, I don't know, get into e-commerce or something, right? It doesn't matter what it is, the foundation is the same. What is it that you believe about yourself and about what it means to pivot, right? Because you can decide for it to mean that, oh, pivoting is flaky, and someone that changes their mind, they're flaky and they can't be taken seriously. Or you can choose for it to mean that somebody who changes their mind is so rooted in what feels good for them and they follow that and they will not settle for anything less. And there's a lot more power in that, right? And I know this is really easy for me to say right now, having been through a number of pivots where I have, thought all of these thoughts that you may be thinking or that you have thought in the past. And most recently, it was upping my family, moving into a caravan, selling everything that we owned, and then deciding, that there was that pivot, but then deciding that that didn't feel good for me anymore, and then ending that. The shame that I felt in that moment was monumental, because I was like, oh my gosh, um, not only am I pivoting or shifting my entire life, like it's also happening to my family as well, right? But what I also want to say is that when we're feeling though, and when we're like so bogged down and in those feelings of shame, we can't actually move forward, right? We can't actually make decisions that are going to help us and to allow us to move forward. So I chose to move through those feelings of shame very quickly, and I chose to to look at it completely differently, to shift my entire perspective on that. And yes, that took a lot of practice, right? Yes, that took a lot of creating radical awareness around the thoughts that I was thinking, how I was talking to myself, and practicing changing those in the moment, so that I could actually shift from being in that from being in that feeling of shame to being in that feeling of excitement, expansion, and just the knowing that I am following my heart and that is what I am here to do. That is my highest good, to follow what feels good for me. And it's the same for you, right? Like, I don't believe that we're here to live a good on life paper and then feel shit about it, and to move through that life, just going through the motions, ticking the boxes and being like, well, yeah, like I've got the house in the suburbs, I've got the family, I've got the dog, I've got the nice car, but inside I'm feeling like shit. Inside I'm feeling so unfulfilled and I am screaming to try and get out of this life. I don't believe that that's what we're here for. I believe wholeheartedly with every cell of my being that we are here to follow what feels good, that we are here to tap into the courage, because it takes a fucking lot of courage. But we are here to tap into that courage to move with what feels good, to honor what feels good for us, and to go there and to allow ourselves to experience it. If you ask me, like, that is what life is about. And over these last few years, especially, like, I cannot tell you how many times I've pivoted, whether it's been my business, whether it's been my entire life, whether it's been my identity. Okay, there have been a number of iterations of Carly over these past few years as well. And sometimes I look back on that and I'm like, wow, had I not made all of these pivots, had I not made all of these changes in my life, had I just kind of, followed one path and just kept going, even if it felt a little bit boring, like maybe right now I'd be, in a more, like, what's the word? Not stable, not secure, in a more, maybe I'd be further ahead, right? Maybe I'd be further ahead. Maybe I would have made more money if I had just stuck to one path and followed it. And yeah, maybe. But the thing here is that I refuse to stay stuck. I absolutely, like, point blank, will refuse to stay in anything that is mediocre. I will refuse to stay in any kind of situation that is not lighting me up from the inside out. And if that means that I don't make as much money, or if that means that I, maybe waste a bit of time, in air quotes, then so be it. To me, it is so worth that, because staying stuck, staying unfulfilled, staying in a mediocre kind of life where I'm just settling and ticking the boxes and going through the motions every day and it's like Groundhog Day, to me, that costs me so much more than a little bit of extra money that I could have made, or a little bit of time that I, could have maybe saved, right? Time is just a construct anyway. So that's why I'm using air quotes, but you can't see those. So we get to choose what path we want to follow. Okay. And I know that that maybe I'm making it sound simple. And I do want you to know, like, the reality of pivoting your whole life, like it feels hard. It feels really fucking hard. I'm not going to sit here and say to you that if you choose and you pivot your life and you make a really big change and you shift all of the things that are not working, then you're going to jump and you're going to be caught and you're going to be fine and you're going to wish that you'd done it sooner. Like, yes, you probably will get to that point. And that's where I am right now. Like, this past year and a half since moving out of like the caravan, separating with my ex-husband, moving back to my parents' house for a period of time, like right now I can go, oh my God, it was all so worth doing that. And I now know that I am like truly where I'm meant to be in this moment. And it just keeps getting better and better. And one of my mantras is, universe, show me how good it can get, right? Because it is just getting so fucking good. But it wasn't always feeling like that. And there were moments after I'd made the decision to make these big changes that I was just like, what the fuck have I done? Like, this is feeling harder. Everyone tells you that if you leap, you will be caught. And, the universe has always got your back. And I felt anything but that in that moment. And so I kind of want to realistically prepare you that if you do choose to change something big in your life, or you choose to kind of pivot, there are going to be moments where you're going to question yourself and you're going to go, what the fuck have I done? You're probably going to wish that you had just opted for the easy route, which was staying where you were. But what do I know? What do we know? Is that the easy road, which is the one where you're just settling for good on paper, that easy road gets harder in the long run. It gets so much harder. But choosing the hard road, it gets easier. Right? And that's exactly where I'm at right now. And that's why I guess I feel compelled and I feel the desire to speak into this, because I have walked those really hard roads and I have seen them get a lot easier. I'm feeling them get a lot easier. I'm experiencing them getting a lot easier. And I've also walked the easy roads, right? If you knew me a few years ago, like, you would have known Carly as the person who just takes the easy road, right? Who just goes with, what's easy, what like is not going to cause any kind of conflict with, what's going to require the least amount of work right now. Take the easy road, Carly. That is what I used to do. Maybe you can relate to that as well. But what I found was that it gets to a point where you sort of walk that easy road, that all of a sudden that easy road turns into a hill that you just can't possibly keep walking up any longer. Right? It's like you are trying to walk up Everest. Maybe, I don't know, I've never done it. But without any support, without any water, and you just have to stop and you're like, I just can't do this anymore. That's what the easy road turns into. It turns into a harder road. But that harder road, while it feels like, at the beginning you're climbing Everest and you haven't got as much support, like all of a sudden it's like, people pop out and they're like, hey, do you want a hand? Hey, here's some water. And then someone else pops out and they help you. And then all of a sudden it's like you're at the top and it's this really easy, I don't know, path down, right? I don't know. But you know what I'm saying, right? It gets a lot easier. It's a really big thing. Like, if you are thinking right now about changing something big in your life, and I'm going to share with you some questions to ask yourself in a moment if you are considering changing something in your life. But it's a really big thing. And I think as well, we really need to celebrate the courage that it takes to do this, the courage that it takes to create a life by your own design, to live a life by your own design, to actually imagine what your life could look like, because that's where it all begins. That's where creation happens, in our imagination. And I want you to know that, because I want you to know that if you can imagine it and you can conceive this different way of living for yourself, for your family, for your business, whatever it is, then you're there, right? You've just got to allow it to manifest in your 3D world. You've got to allow it to manifest in your reality. But if you can see it and you can actually let yourself be in the imagination and in the vision of it, then it will absolutely manifest. And trust yourself on that. Trust yourself and have faith in yourself on that. Okay, I shared this the other day. Maybe it was on a podcast that I was on. But when I was living in Byron and things were not going great, we had separated and we were kind of navigating like, all right, you're staying in the caravan tonight. I'm going to go and stay in a cabin. And then we were just moving like every couple of nights. And it was a really challenging period. But I would go to bed every single night, and right as I would go to sleep, this is a thing, like a tip for you, right? If you are wanting to make something in your 3D reality happen, I would go to bed every single night, and as I was falling asleep, I would have this little movie on repeat. It was like probably like a 20-second movie, but it was me and my daughter. I was holding a set of keys and I was unlocking a door, and her hand went on mine and we opened the door together to our new apartment, right? And I just kept looping that movie over and over and over in my mind. And I had no idea how it was going to happen. Because in that moment, I was purely in survival mode. And I could not, I knew where we were going to live. I knew that it was going to happen, but I couldn't see, or I had no idea how it was going to happen, right? And I had to surrender to not knowing the how and to not being attached to the how. I had to just hold on to that vision and go to sleep every single night thinking about that, playing that movie on repeat over and over and over and over again. And so then in January this year, I took a video of us walking into our new apartment with me, with the keys, putting the keys into the handle, and like us both opening the door. And I was just like, I did it. I did it, right? Because I stayed so committed to my vision. Okay, and that's just a little piece of what I was creating, but that was a really big piece, because in that moment, like living in the caravan, not knowing, what was coming next, like, or how, anything was going to unfold, I just had to hold on to that. And that's what really, really kept me going. And so for you right now, like, maybe you've got this vision, maybe you've got this thing that you want to move into, you've got this thing that you want to change in your life. Like the tangible kind of action that I would give you right now is to create this like 20-second movie that you can just play over and over and over in your mind and watch it as though, like through your own eyes, as though it is already done. Feel it as though it is already done, right? This is you like living in the wish fulfilled, right? Your wish, the thing that you're wanting to create, it's already done. Okay? So wonder like if you could stay committed to that and like replay this movie over and over again every single day, every single night, in the morning, whenever. I wonder what would change for you. So the next thing I wanted to share with you is, just 3 questions that you can ask yourself. If right now you are in this place where you're considering making a pivot, whether it's in your business or you're wanting to make a big change in your life, maybe it's leaving a relationship, maybe it's leaving a job, maybe it's going full time in your business. It doesn't really matter what it is, okay? But you can ask yourself these 3 questions. So the first one, and this is a very important one, what is it that I really want? And as I said, right now you may not know what you want. You may just know that it's like there's something more, but I'm not quite sure what it is yet. Allow yourself the space to explore what that is. Give yourself the gift of quiet and of, space to just be able to like sink into creation in your mind around what it is that you truly want. Okay, so let yourself get clear on that and let yourself own it. Because whatever you desire is meant to be yours, because if it wasn't, you would not desire it. It's only come to you because it can be yours and you are meant to have it. Okay, but we humans, we then go and cock block ourselves by putting all these conditions on our desires, and we tell ourselves that we can't have it because we're not good enough, or we're not this, we're not that, or good things like this don't happen to people like me, rah rah rah. We condition it, and that's why we don't get the things that we want, right? Because we're placing conditions on it. But what if you just allowed yourself to get really radically honest with yourself about what it is that you want, and you let yourself own it? And then go and create your 20-second movie around that. Okay? The second question is, what are you sacrificing by staying where you are now? What are you sacrificing? And this question might, again, require a little bit of space for you to get kind of clear. What are the dreams that you're sacrificing by staying where you are now? What are the things that are not coming to life? What are the things that you're not birthing? What are the ways of living, right, that you're not allowing yourself to have or to be or to do, right, because you're staying where you are right now? And then thirdly, how would your life change if you gave yourself permission, to go for what you want? You don't need anybody else's permission. And this could be one of the most liberating things that you hear, but it can also be one of the most triggering. You are the only person who is limiting what you can have. You are the only person who is limiting the life that you can live. It's no one or nothing else. It's only coming from you. So how would your life change if you gave yourself the permission to just fucking go for it? And create yourself another picture, right? Like, create yourself another picture of you living your life. You've made this big decision. You've made this pivot. You've made this shift in your life, and now you're living your life, the life of your dreams. And again, right, if you can create that in your imagination, then you can real life that shit, right? That can be your 3D reality. But you've got to create it in your imagination first. And so many people are just kind of like living on autopilot. They're going through the motions and they're replaying the past. They're replaying the stories that other people have told them about what's possible. They're replaying, let's just say they're launching a program. They're replaying the launch that failed. Air quotes. There's no failure, right? But they're replaying all of the bad things that have happened in their past. And then they're wondering why their future's not getting any better. It's because people are so addicted to replaying the past. And therefore, you're creating more of that. So how about instead you allow yourself to create a vision of the future that you actually want, you play that in your mind, and then see what changes in your life as a result. Okay, I hope that this episode served you. I fully trust that it did. I would love to hear your takeaway from this. If you are moving into a phase of life where you're wanting to change something, you're wanting to pivot, whether it's in your business, your life, your relationships, whatever, share it on your stories. Let me know your biggest takeaway, and drop us a review. If you haven't given us a review yet on either Spotify or Apple, I would be so freaking grateful if you would just pop in, give us a little 5-star review if you loved this episode, and share it with a friend, okay? Because let's get this podcast into more ears of more conscious humans who want to create massive fucking things in the world, who want to have a major impact, and we can all rise together. All right, guys, thanks for listening. I fucking love you. Until next time, you have got this.